Welcome to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, the daily talk show with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball. You never know what special guest may stop on by any given day. Now here's the man of the hour, Mr. Steve Jones.
Let's start out with State College's own Rob Krimmel.
Yes.
Getting St. Francis to the NCAA basketball tournament for the second time ever, and the first time since Mike Isolino and company went in 1991. That is a tremendous accomplishment by when I saw them in the Jordan Center against Penn State early in the season. I'm not sitting there thinking they're going to win the NEC, but like I looked over at Dick and I said, so to be honest with you, they're a pretty good team, especially the Juan Cranford. Juan Cranford, the true freshman. You're like, I said, Dick, they've got some guys on this team that can play. Right now, in the non-conference, they're going to get blown up.
Yeah.
Okay, that's going to happen. You'll see, for example, American will play Navy tonight. Okay, both teams in the non-conference aren't going to fare well. Bucknell was the number 1 seed, and Eddie DeChellis' team, Navy, beat them.
Yeah.
But Bucknell got blown up in the non-con. But when they got to the conference schedule, Bucknell played really well. Were never really good at the free throw line, which in the end hurt them in the loss to Navy at home on Sunday. But that is, bad. I'll get to that in a second. And that's in conference tournament play. The pressure's always on the one, unless everybody knows you're getting in.
Yeah.
But in the one bid leagues, like High Point was 15 points down and had to rally to win.
Yeah.
So they get in. Last night, Central Connecticut, right? And as you and I would refer to them as Central.
Yeah, it's Central.
Right? Growing up, each one of us grew up in Connecticut. We always refer to Central. Southern Connecticut's always called Southern.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody talks about Western Connecticut. They don't do anything.
And then UConn, just sitting there in the Northeast,
right.
in the corner.
Okay, so Central's the number 1 seed. All the pressure's on them.
14-2 in the NEC.
It's a low-scoring game. It's 20-20 at halftime. And both teams play strong defense. St. Francis makes enough plays. I think Juan Cranford had 14 last night.
He had 14 points last night.
Yeah,
yes.
You doubt me.
I had the scorebook pulled up, and you said it as if you didn't know.
Yeah, and they won. It's the first time they've ever done it. At the end of the game, it depends on your team and what you think about your team and what they know. And so Rob's not calling timeouts.
No.
At the end. He also decided not to foul at the end, up 3. And Central did take a shot from midcourt, a Gordon Hayward shot, and it was just to the right. Yes. It was a pretty good shot, but they won. And that was phenomenal. For Rob, I mean, of course, his father, Bob Krimmel, was here at Penn State for decades, swimming and diving coach here, assistant athletic director, then eventually became the athletic director at St. Francis. His brother Ken played on the Penn State basketball team. Kenny was part of the 2001 team that went to the Sweet 16. So this is like, this is just a great moment for everybody. Yeah. And I'm thrilled for everybody in Loretto. And Rob is a St. Francis player. Now he's the head coach, but he's also State College's own, so congratulations to him. Meanwhile, let's give Gonzaga and St. Mary's credit for setting the game back 50 years.
Well, I wanted to, before we get to the full game itself, highlight the combined numbers between the Gonzaga game and the St. Francis game. Steve, how many threes do you think were taken in the two games combined?
Well, I know the Gonzaga St. Mary's game at 31. They were 1 for 31.
You'd be correct. St. Francis Central, how many? 43 is the number.
Okay.
Combined between the two games, they went 9 for 74 from 3.
But they were 1 for 31 out.
One
in Orleans.
31.
I've done 2 games in Orleans Arena. It's not a bad shooting background.
Braden Huff made 1 3, and that was it.
And he mostly played inside.
He did. Like, they shot the ball well outside of, if they take away the 14 missed threes from Gonzaga, they shot the ball, Gonzaga, pretty darn well. Like, it was just, they shot the ball 50% outside of 14 missed threes. And I like the look of Khalif Battle. I thought he was really good. Another Nemhard is in with Gonzaga again, this time Ryan.
Yeah.
So they played well last night. They beat St. Mary's. They beat the Gales pretty strongly. So that was a fun game to watch last night. But yes, the game was set back once again. What set the game back more, Steve? 58 Gonzaga, 51 St. Mary's, or 49 Michigan, I believe, 46 Nebraska? What game set the game back more?
They're both on an equal plane, but I will say this: I've always used certain things as broadcast lessons, and look, Penn State's had some of these. They stopped Illinois' 36-game home court winning streak, winning 38-33. They beat Wisconsin in the Big Ten quarterfinals 36-33, the night where Taylor Battle went past Jesse Arnell on the all-time scoring list at Penn State. I did a game with Tennessee once where it was 33-33 at the end of regulation, I believe, and Penn State won the game. They scored all the points in overtime, 141-33. And I said, I will tell them from the broadcasting point of view, I said, as absurd as the score may seem, with 5 minutes to go in the game, winning and losing comes in. So it doesn't matter whether it's 96-93 or 36-33. Each one is a 3-point game.
Yes.
And that's what it comes down to, especially in championship games. So you're watching St. Francis and Central go back and forth, and basically St. Francis doing just enough to keep them at arm's length. And it's all coming down to margin as each team goes back and forth on possessions. And at that point, it didn't matter whether it was, the final was 48-45?
46-43.
46-43. So does it matter if it's 96-93? Well, I mean, what's the difference? It may be for overall 2 hours of entertainment value, yes, but in terms of the ability to win the game, get the automatic bid, right? It's a close game down the stretch where people need to make plays, or we see the failure to make plays. Same thing with Gonzaga St. Mary's. Once it got to 5 minutes to go, even though Gonzaga did not relinquish the lead in the last 5 minutes, and both teams are in. That's the
St.
difference.
Mary's is sitting at the 19th spot. They're going to end up getting in.
Right. I mean, they'll get in. I mean, they'll
be an at-large.
Right. They'll be an at-large that my guess is will be a 6 or a 7 seed. The key for Gonzaga is by winning last night and getting the automatic bid, it probably gets them to a 7 seed, which means you do what?
You get to host.
No.
Oh.
No.
You get to face...
You don't get to face 1 in the second round. You face 2.
And
right.
Yeah.
So if you're in the 8-9 game, which is where they were projected to be going in, now that means if you were fortunate and win your first round game, because 8-9 is...
Yeah.
I mean, that's an either or above all. You face 1 in the second round.
And this time you get 2. And instead of facing Duke, Houston, Auburn, Alabama.
Well, you saw 2 years ago, Penn State faced 2. Well, here's Penn State sitting there because Penn State won the 10-7 game, right? They're facing 2, and guess what? Okay? It's going down to the wire in that game.
Yeah.
Right? Hard fought, right? At least you avoided playing one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you're trying to avoid.
And these were 2 of the 3 championship games last night. I want to highlight the third one. The Delaware Blue Hens put up a fight. They lost against UNC Wilmington 76-72. They put up 44 points in the second half, which is just a
it didn't help that they had to
effort,
take fouls late because the freshman that had 21 for them last night fouled out.
Yes, Isaiah Pacha.
That did not help because he was the one that kept them in it.
He had 21, 8, and 7, by the way.
And he did not realize it was his 5th foul.
Mm-hmm.
He walked down the other end all set. They go, "You're out." He goes, "What do you mean I'm out?" Mm-hmm. Right? And then all of a sudden, when he realized he was out, he put his jersey over his face like he just was. He just didn't know.
And they don't play a lot of subs. Delaware. It was the 5 starters played for the lowest number was 37 minutes. But outside, it's basically their starting 5 plays a full 40.
Right? No. They made no substitutions in the second half. It was the equivalent of what North Carolina did at Duke and Mike Krzyzewski's final home game in Cameron.
Keep the starters in.
Right, where Hubert Davis never went to the bench.
No. And that's what they did, and they ended up losing, as you mentioned, towards the end of the game. So the UNC Wilmington Seahawks will make their way into the NCAA tournament and find out their fate come Sunday.
One thing I did not see is I did not see the final on Bryant last night. I saw it at halftime because that's Jimmy Martelli's brother.
Mm-hmm. The final on Bryant last night, if I can pull that on up. Give me 1 second. Bryant last night.
They were winning by 6 at halftime.
Mm-hmm. Bryant ended up winning by 13. They took down Albany.
So now they're going to face Maine.
Against Maine.
They're going to play Maine. Maine has never been to the NCAA tournament. And I know it's a fact that shocks people.
Yeah, and Maine won 57-42 over Vermont in their finals. Vermont put up 19 and then 23 in the first and second half.
Vermont's owned that conference for years.
They have. The Catamounts have been as good as they get. And now Maine makes their way there. They're sitting 10-6 in the American East this season. So it should be a fun game to watch. And I would be intrigued. Something I'd love to have happen is for Maine to make it and then for them to face Duke by some stretch, just so we can get the Cooper Flag Maine thing. I don't know.
Well, they already played this year.
They did?
Maine played at Duke.
Well, there we go then.
Do you follow the game?
No.
I'm joking. It's just a joke, okay? I'm just kidding.
I know.
I'm kidding.
By the way, today we have the second round of the ACC tournament going on, the first round of the A10, second round of the Big 12, first round of the SEC, and first round of the Big 10 tournaments. There's a lot going on in terms of finals today, going on later tonight. Lamar takes on McNeese down in Lake Charles, Louisiana.
That's the Southland?
That is the Southland tournament. McNeese is Will Wade is the coach, if I'm not mistaken, of that team.
Oh, yes. Oh,
if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Okay. And by the way, I think I referred to as the CA as the Colonial, its old name yesterday. It's actually the Coastal.
The Coastal.
And that was the UNC Wilmington one. That's the Coastal Athletic Association.
You already mentioned Navy and American are going to play today.
Yep, that's
going on
at Bender Arena. And yes, have I ever done a game at Bender? The answer is yes.
And then other games going on, we have the Big Sky Championship, Montana versus Northern Colorado.
Northern Colorado is not only winning, but they are absolutely shutting teams down. I'm talking people flat out are not scoring against them. I saw just enough of starch madness, right, to know that.
They beat Weber State 76-52, beat Montana State 72-45, and now they get a game against Montana today. They are the top seed in the Big Sky as well.
Yes.
They are playing well. As you mentioned, their losses this season, they've only had 8 of them.
And remember, Boise State, which is a good basketball team, is in the Mountain West.
Yes.
They are not in the Big Sky. So even though it's taking place in Boise, now, it's not. That's not a Boise State issue.
Yes, it is. I love this season I know everyone loves the beginning of January because we get all of the bowl games happen and it's like a bowl game going on at a time. I love turning on my TV and just putting a channel on and seeing the Big Sky Championship.
Sure.
There's something about it, Steve, that just like, it brings me joy.
Sure. No. It's when you see like, the Summit Championship, the Horizon Championship, because these are titles on the line. And that's one thing about the tournament and like, for example, the first four.
Yeah.
And you'll have two 16s play each other, and everybody go, oh, boy, two 16s. They're just going to go in and get crushed by a 1, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? You know what happens when the two 16s play each other? Mm-hmm. One of them has an NCAA tournament win when the night's over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A win is a win.
Right? But it's an NCAA tournament win. Mm-hmm. So by going to 76, which is a possibility.
It has been discussed. Brett Yormark, I believe, yesterday said he's in favor of it.
Well, Yormark's the one that's been pushing it the whole time. I mean, look, Yormark's interesting. Okay, let's start with this. Get rid of the Louis Vuitton court. What the heck was that?
It is.
Get rid of the Louis Vuitton bag court. What are you doing?
We saw it this past week with the women's tournament, and I was like, that can't be real. Can it?
It's real.
It's real, and it's terrible. By the way, Northern Colorado, can you tell me how many times they've made the NCAA tournament?
Well, I know they were in 2011 because I saw them play.
They were only 2011.
They played San Diego State because I was at the game,
and that was the one time they've played in the NCAA tournament.
They were a 25-win team that season.
Yeah,
and they played after the Penn State Temple game, and at halftime. And San Diego State had Kawhi Leonard. Mm-hmm. So at halftime, it's really close. Yeah. And somebody looked over and they said, I can't believe these guys are that close to San Diego State. And they're like, Leonard. And I looked over and I said, guys, see that team right there? Mm-hmm. I said, they won 25 times this year and they just won their conference tournament. It said, that's not an unconfident team.
Yeah.
Right? Because they know how to win.
Yeah. Now, every team that gets the tournament knows how to win because they had to win their tournament or they had to win enough games.
Exactly. I said, but they also won. But they also are not like, look, St. Francis, with all due respect, they're going to be an under 500 team going in.
Yes.
Northern Colorado in 2011 was a 25-win team in the regular, And I think 25 wins over. So they won 22 games in the regular season. Won the three in the conference tournament. I said, that's not a team that used to losing. I said, at that point, they had not lost a game since like January, like 7th or 8th.
Yeah, it'd been a minute.
Right? And somebody said, that makes sense. And so.
Can you tell me, by the way, there's only one former Bear who has been drafted into the NBA. Who is it? From Northern Colorado. Only one player has gone to college there and drafted the NBA.
I don't know.
It would be 2024 first round draft pick Dalton Knecht.
Oh, good.
He played there.
Oh, yeah,
and
that's
then
right.
He
did transfer. Yeah.
So he is the only NBA draft selection from the Bears. The only other one to appear in a game was Mike Higgins. So
I want to talk about two passings. One local and the other one national. And that one being Junior Bridgman, because I want to get into the Bridgman thing. Is an interesting life. Dave Eukelson was here at Penn State, psychologist, sports psychologist, just an absolutely great guy. He and I, in fact, and Uke had done a lot of great work here, other places, helped a lot of people. Dave had cancer surgery last week, and after it struggled and then passed away. I literally just saw Dave last month at the UCLA game. He and his son were there at the UCLA game. Now, Dave and I coached Little League together. At one point, we coached Babe Ruth baseball together. More at that point, I was coaching his sons. All right, and was absolutely one of the great guys out there. I mean, I could kid around with him. I remember one time Susan Robinson, now Susan Robinson Fruchtel, who they were in the hallway of Rec Hall. So the Jordan Center hasn't been built yet. And I'm walking down the hallway, and Uke is telling her about the psychology of shooting a free throw, like see the rim. Right? And I walked by, I said, oh, for God's sakes, Uke. I said, she's a 2,000-point scorer. Just let her shoot it. I said, he goes, oh, yeah. He looks at me and goes, absolutely. Because I'm very simple about that stuff. I think you can overthink things.
Yeah.
All right, that's me. Okay. But there's no question on the face of the earth, there's a mountain of people he helped over the years. And I don't mean just shooting and things like that. I'm talking about with so many other issues along the way. And just a really terrific guy. Marla, the kids, Adam, Josh. I mean, great family. And so we mourn the passing of a really a great guy that I thought the world of. Junior Bridgman. Junior Bridgman was a heck of a player at Louisville. And he gets drafted by the Lakers. Well, he goes on to have himself a 14-year NBA career, 12 of which were with the Milwaukee Bucks. How did he get the Milwaukee Bucks? He was one of the guys in the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar trade from the Lakers. So when you look at his career, remember when this took place, okay? This took place in the 70s.
Yes.
Okay? Well, his top-out salary in the 70s was, let's see, I've got it listed here, because he had a good career. You're talking about 13.5 points, 3.5 boards, a couple assists per game. Just a really good player.
Former NBA six-man.
His top salary was $350,000. Remember, this is the 70s, so $350,000. He made $2.95 million for his entire career. What did he do? He took the money and he built a fast food empire. At one point, he had more than 450 restaurants nationwide. He became a Coca-Cola bottling distributor with territory across 3 states and into Canada. Then he took the money and he bought Ebony and Jet magazines. He then invested in NBA Africa. Last September, he purchased 10% of the Milwaukee Bucks. How could he do that? Well, because Forbes reported that Junior Bridgman's net worth surpassed $1.4 billion.
Billion with a B.
Right? How smart and forward-thinking was Junior Bridgman? He is an example. He's an example. His life is an example in the world of business about what you can do if you get some coin to go with a brain, a college education, and instinct. Again, he was an NBA guy. He made tons of money. No, this is the 1970s, okay? No offense, okay? I'm not going to ever say what the number is. I know what Jack Ham's top-out salary was with the Pittsburgh Steelers. My source, him, because he volunteered it. I never asked, but he volunteered. He told me what it was. This is the 1970s. So in the 1970s, he never made more than $350,000. He wasn't making $350,000 a season. He never made more than $350,000. Thus, there were years he made less than that. So he totals in what a 14-year NBA career, 14 seasons, $2.95 million. Well, that's really good. But he took $2.95 million. Now, of course, there are bills along the way, but just take the base number. He turned it into $1.4 billion?
Yeah.
Right?
It's a lot of money.
He is an example. Right? And not just an example, he's also an example culturally. that if you can garner some cash and then you're smart enough to invest it the right way and make the right moves, because I know he's now reviled in Carolina because of how he was running the organization, and there are a lot of side issues. But how do you think Jerry Richardson, a former wide receiver for the Baltimore Colts, bought the Carolina Panthers in 1995? Because he invested in Hardee's, right, and had Hardee's franchises all over the place.
Yeah.
God, there was an official who worked some Big Ten games and a lot of SEC games. It was really good. And off the top of my head, I can't remember his name. Right, but he didn't need the money. Why? He invested in McDonald's franchises, had them all over the place, so it didn't matter if some coach was yelling at him. He could walk away anytime he wanted. He was loaded. Like, right? Well, this is unbelievable. I mean, look, how good is this guy as a player? As a player, his number 2 is, by the way, retired.
It's in Pfizer Forum.
I mean, it's in. It used to be at the Bradley Center, and I've done games in the Bradley Center. I saw it hanging up there, for goodness sakes. But you want to talk about hard work, perseverance. Okay, you want to talk about no money growing up. He grew up in East Chicago.
Yeah.
Okay, East Chicago. He wanted to join the Boy Scouts. You want to know why he couldn't join? Because the $1.25 membership was too much money for his family in the 60s. They couldn't afford it. He spent summers working odd jobs, making $20 to $40 a week. Money he tried to stretch throughout the school year. At Louisville, he worked summers. He played for Denny Crum. He worked summers at a farm equipment manufacturer, a steel cutting company, from midnight to 7 a.m. at a Ford truck plant. This guy worked and worked and worked and worked. And you want to talk about somebody that was a self-made billionaire. It was Junior Bridgman. And to me, he is somebody that is worthy of a university athletic department. Somebody needs to do a documentary on him and then show it to every athlete that is sitting there, especially the football and basketball players who have more avenues to big money than anybody else. But show them. If you're going to tell people, because we're going to see the NCAA is going to tell you about everybody, about, again, it's all about the kids. Yeah, sure. Right. Their image campaign of 97% of athletes turn pro in something else. Okay, well, this guy went pro and took his money and turned it into something. See, that's why, that's what Jack is an incredible success, because he took his money and he's had Ham Enterprises, okay, which is coal and energy and brokerage, and has been an incredible success. That's why I tell people Jack was a success on the football field as a player, a success in business, he's a success as a broadcaster. It's multifaceted.
Shame he's got to work with Steve Jones, but whatever.
No, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, a success in everything he's done, because he had to work for everything. Junior Bridgman had to work for everything, right? And he also wanted athletes to consider the concept of generational wealth. So the idea of players stretching their earnings into future generations of their family. He expressed to ESPN how proud he was of his own family, 3 children. They had become involved in various parts of the business empire that he helped to build. He said, as for his basketball life, Junior Bridgman said, quote, "It was fun." He said, how could it be fun? It was. It was fun. I liked playing basketball, right? And he says, money can disappear. He says, whether it's $80,000 to $80 million, it can still disappear on you. He spoke to NBA players, rookies, veterans, and entire teams about financial literacy, a topic he was deeply passionate about after seeing a number of notable athletes across sports face financial ruin. As the years went on and as salaries rose in the NBA, Bridgman preached caution. Money can disappear, whether it's $80,000 or $80 million. It can disappear on you. And he says, think about growing up and wanting to be an NBA player, probably his dream. And he turned that into a dream, into becoming an NBA owner, said Doc Rivers. Mm-hmm. He was the exact model the league should use every day when talking to their players about young players. Mm-hmm. All right. You know, this guy was an All-American. He was a great player.
Yeah.
You know, I watched him play. Mm-hmm. He was like, wow, this guy can really play. Wasn't a surprise that he was drafted in the NBA. Goes to the Lakers, right? Imagine being in the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar trade. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, Dave Myers, Junior Bridgman. Like, the Bucks, an expansion team. Mm-hmm. The first year they didn't have them. In their third year of existence, won the NBA title with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and they acquired Oscar Robertson to go with John McLaughlin and Flynn Robinson and a bunch of other players. Lucius Allen was on that team. Well, now they're going along. Again, they're an expansion team. Came in the same time as the Phoenix Suns. Okay? They win their third year because they were fortunate to win the coin flip over Phoenix. And Phoenix ended up drafting Neil Walk. Now they trade Jabbar. This is one of the guys they got. And he was an all-star year after year, sixth man of the year, the whole thing. And he understood what to do with his money.
Yeah.
I mean, we have too many stories of over the years, and James Franklin has said this about investment money and what to do with your money. Okay? It can disappear. And he is somebody that every single athlete should see his story, especially football and basketball players who have an opportunity to make more out of this. As he says, it can disappear. So you'll see an NIL number for somebody. Their NIL number is, let's just use a round figure, $1 million. Hey, they got it made.
Yeah.
You don't have anything made. You have nothing made.
So let's see here. You get $1 million. How much goes to taxes, Steve?
Well, out of that, probably about 40 to 50%.
Okay, so you're down to $550,000.
Yep.
And then you get that, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, I want to make sure I have a car.
Right.
So you get a car.
So you get a car. So
Let's say it
that's
costs
$50,000.
Yeah. And then you're like, oh.
Because you're going to buy brand new. I mean, you're not going to go over to the used lot.
You're going to buy brand new.
Or as they would tell us, it's pre-owned. Right,
50
okay.
grand.
Right.
And then I know a lot of athletes, I've seen so many stories of like they buy for their sibling or their parent, $50,000 for a car. There. All of a sudden you're down to, let's say, $250,000.
Right.
And you've got to, pay rent and grab food for yourself and books for stuff, whatever you got to take care of. Like, it goes away fast.
Yep.
And you start with $1 million. You're like, oh, I'm a millionaire. That $1 million doesn't last you a week. And like the point here is to get wealth and keep wealth versus when you have it, you don't just keep it forever.
Right.
So.
Yeah, to me, it's an example for everybody.
I would like to discuss the Big Ten tournament.
Yes, please. I mean, but I wanted to mention that because I think it's such a huge issue these days, especially more money than ever.
Yeah, and kids are now making this money at their 19 years old, 18 years old, where you truthfully, like as an 18-year-old, as of 6 years ago, I didn't know much better. If I had $1 million, I'd be like, yeah, that's awesome. And like, I would spend it on stupid things. I won't lie.
Sure.
Any 18-year-old who has $1 million is thinking that way. The Big Ten tournament starts today. The first three games we have Northwestern, Minnesota, Iowa, Ohio State, USC, Rutgers, I want to break down and go through the Big Ten tournament, how it's going to be kind of laid out, and get your thoughts and feelings on the matchups, the games. Right. Basically run through this prediction style. So we'll start Northwestern, Minnesota, I believe is the 3:30 game. So Northwestern, Minnesota. Northwestern's played really well this season. They've been without Brooks Barnhizer, and they find themselves now going up against Minnesota. Who do you have in this one? You've seen both teams play this season. How do you feel about it?
Minnesota's an odd team. Mm-hmm. They're not shooting the ball well. Mm-hmm. They need Dawson Garcia to play really well. Martinelli, to his credit, he is a perfect example of a guy that's developed. Mm-hmm. His first season is there. You're like, he hardly plays. You're like, all right, what's the role of this guy? Mm-hmm. Then he gets to last year, and he played a little bit more. And you're like, he's like 7 points a game. Like, whatever. It's like, okay, fine. Then you look at him this year. I'm going to go with Northwestern. To win that game. Minnesota should be the team to win it, but Northwestern, I think, is going to win it because I just think that right now, Chris Collins has done a great job of organizing that team, playing the game in such a way that gives them a chance to win. And I think it's one of the better coaching jobs I've seen. Look, I know Tom Izzo got Coach of the Year. There was a lot of sentiment for Dusty May to win it. But we were talking the other day, and I said, I wouldn't be adverse to voting for Chris Collins. I didn't, okay? But I thought about it. I actually put Chris as second on my list.
And Chris Collins, by the way, so they are currently favored, Northwestern, by 2.5 points going into this game. And Collins is now apparently the rumored big candidate for the Indiana job. He's the current favorite as of right now.
Chris Collins?
Chris Collins, I know. That came out of nowhere this past 24 hours, and I was like, huh?
Well, you got to remember, this is not the athletic director that hired him at Northwestern. 2 years ago, they wanted to bag him. They're like, and all of a sudden he brought them to the NCAA tournament.
WOWY, Ty Berry.
Yeah, and then Penn State beat them in their, what round was it? Second round matchup. Penn State beat them in the second round matchup, but they still made the NCAAs. And
so that is game number one. We'll get to their second round matchup in a second. The other game going on after them, game two. All these games, by the way, are on Peacock in the first round. We have Iowa versus Ohio State.
Iowa is in a tough stretch right now. The reason they're in a tough stretch is that ever since they lost Owen Freeman, they can't do anything inside. They completely rely on the outside shot. Peyton Sanford, I have a lot of respect for because, to be honest with you, and I did talk to him about it after the game when Penn State was out there. He said, I really shouldn't be playing right now with his shoulder, but he's been playing and gutsy. Not having Freeman has, I think, hurt Brock Harding as a point guard. The two of them were high school teammates. So they have a real connection as to how to play. Well, he doesn't have the same connection with other people. Ohio State, this is all about Parrish, Mobley, and Thornton and their ability to shoot the ball. They shoot the ball well. They advance. Ohio State really needs the game. Right now, Joe Lenardi has them as a last four in. They had Indiana by 10 on Saturday, lost the game at Indiana. As the Mike Woodson faux celebratory tour continues. Okay. But Ohio State's the call.
Ohio State's the call. They are currently favored by 5.5 points in this game.
They'll beat that number.
Yeah. By the way, the over-under, I like looking at this. The Northwestern-Minnesota game is 126 total points. The Iowa-Ohio State game, 154 total points.
Again, that's one of the issues. Like we talked about games yesterday where the defense, St. Francis defense was great. Gonzaga, St. Mary's, even the the defense for Central Connecticut was great last night. That's not this game.
No.
Okay.
And then we go USC Rutgers, the star freshman for the Rutgers team, are on game number 3 on Peacock.
There's a lot about Rutgers I don't like. I think USC, as much as they struggle down the stretch, I think they're going to beat them. I like Desmond Claude. Agbo, the transfer from Boise State, I saw him play down in Orlando when he was with Boise. Then, of course, he had, 7 threes against Penn State. And it's not as if they don't have a talented freshman. Wesley Yates is a good player. Rutgers has Bailey and they have Harper. And the biggest problem they have is they don't have much else around them. It is interesting that in this particular year where there's been a lot of criticism of coaches, a guy I think is a really good coach. I think Steve Peichel's a really good coach. He did not do a good job with this team. He didn't. Simple as that. You can't have 2 NBA guys.
2 top, probably going to be top 10
like
picks
lottery
in the draft.
guys. Right? And have the lack of success they had. I mean, you guys saw him here. I mean, Bob did the Rutgers game down there. Okay, Penn State, in the 4 halves they played, Penn State was the better team in 3 of them. The reason they lost the first game is because they lost the first half decisively and didn't even look recognizable. Then in the second half, Penn State came back and
made it close.
And made it close, and were confusing these guys. And then they played the game here, and they just won. And Bailey had a great night. Who else had a great night?
No one.
Nobody. And they were playing it so close to the vest, and I can't remember which guy it was, but it was like 6 minutes to go in the game. And they came down the floor, and he just jacked up a 3, right? And he missed it. And I said to Dick on the broadcast, "Said circle that one. That's the turning point of the game right there." Because you could see the Rutgers bench like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
Right. I mean, so yeah, I think USC in an upset, they'll win.
So USC in an upset, they are currently favored by 1.5 points. So it's pretty much dead even split right there. And then going into the next round, the Thursday matchups, USC would then take on Purdue in their round. Purdue is currently the 6th seed. USC would go in as the 14 seed.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that one? How would that matchup
Purdue?
go? Purdue, USC.
Oh, no, Purdue would win.
Purdue.
Trey Kaufman-Wren is too much inside for USC to handle. Braden Smith ends up being the Big Ten Player of the Year. I will be honest about you. In voting, there was no obvious choice that stood out to me. So, in the end, the guy that was the preseason choice as the Player of the Year became the Player of the Year. But Braden Smith had a really good year. He did not have a great year. There's nobody in this conference that had a great year. Now, I can point to Martinelli, the awesome improvement, and for him, he had a great year. Bryce Williams, improvement. I can point to he had a great year. Smith did. There's some areas where Smith was a little bit better than last year. And there's some areas where Smith was not as good as last year. Purdue as a team is not as good as last year. They don't have the big fella. It makes a big difference. But in this matchup, they're the better team.
So Purdue moves on. The game before them will be Illinois, the 7 seed, and you had Ohio State as the 10. So that's the 6:30 game.
Look, Illinois is a funky team. Johnson's been out. Yakashonis is really good. But they do have more talent than Ohio State. On a neutral floor, I'll go with Illinois. Plus, they're going to bring their fans in droves. It's going to feel like a home game.
Yeah. That is 6:30 p.m. In Gainbridge. The game before them will be, I believe you had Northwestern winning, if I'm not mistaken, over Minnesota.
Yes, I did.
So they will take on the team we just saw in Madison in Wisconsin and John Tonje, the 5 seed in the tournament.
Well, it's all about shooting. Wisconsin is now. Here's one of the advantages they're going to have. If it's a close game and it becomes a free throw shooting contest at the end, Wisconsin's going to win the game.
They don't miss.
I mean, they're 83% as a team, which is a phenomenal number. Even in the Penn State game, they missed a couple here and there, but you could see one after another that they were dropping them. It's all about, in that game, the ability to make threes. How many threes can Northwestern make to keep pace with Wisconsin because Wisconsin will try to beat you with volume three-point shooting. Are they a great three-point shooting team? They're not a great three-point shooting team, but they try to beat you with volume. They had 31 attempts against Penn State, but that's not unusual.
Yeah.
Okay? It's just a question of their idea is if we hit 12 of them and you hit 7 or 8 of them, guess what?
15
We're
points.
up 12 to 15 points on you. That's their idea to go. Wisconsin's the definition of winning the two lines. They are the definition of what it means to win the two lines because they're going to win the free throw. They have more free throws made than the opposition has free throws attempted on the season. Yeah. Right, and the volume 3-point shooting. That's the difference. Wisconsin wins.
Wisconsin wins the last game in the first round. The aforementioned Mike Woodson against Oregon. Indiana, Oregon, the first game on Thursday.
They just played, and Oregon won. Look, it's going to be interesting to see how the West Coast teams play in this thing because they have to travel. I mean, like they really have to travel to get there.
And this is in Indianapolis. This is an Indiana home game, but it's at Oregon technically because of
I think at this stage,
oh boy,
Biddle and Shellstead I really like a lot.
Shellstead I liked watching him play. He was pretty good.
Right, Bomba's a good player, not great, good. I mean, Kwame Evans, good player, not great. Altman's a terrific coach. So we'll go with it's not going to be an upset, but it will be an upset.
By seeds.
And I'm going to go with Oregon.
You're going to go with Oregon? Oh, you're going to the higher seed.
Yes, I said it's not. I said it's not an upset.
But
I'm going to go with Oregon to win.
So Oregon wins. Oregon will move on. They will take on then Michigan State, the 8 versus the 1, the first game, the noon matchup on Friday.
Well, this is where it starts to get a little hairy because you have teams that are going to be playing for the first time against those that have momentum. Michigan State will beat Oregon probably by 7 to 10. The difference is Michigan State's defense is so good right now. That's what's made them right now they'd be on the 2 line when it comes to seeding.
They played earlier this season. Michigan State won 86-74.
That game was at East Lansing, I believe.
It was. The next matchup moving down the list, you'd have Wisconsin going up against another West Coast team in UCLA.
One thing about UCLA, and I was surprised he didn't get more run. Kobe Johnson, to me, is one of the best, is one of the better defenders in the league. He's one of the better defenders in the league. Putting him up against Tanjay, I think is a really interesting matchup. And remember, what is the difference between, and Bilodeau playing inside will be important, but what's interesting about Wisconsin is they don't have shot blockers. They start 2 7-footers and they don't block shots. Crowd leads the team with 15 blocks and Winter's got 11. Like that's right. That's it.
By the way, they played earlier this season. UCLA won 85-83. Wisconsin went 15 for 30 from 3.
Right.
So they hit 9 more threes in this game.
That game was at Pauley, though.
It was
right?
at Pauley. They hit 15 more threes and lost. Or they hit 9 more threes.
I think UCLA will win. I think Mick Cronin, I'm big on. Although, did I tell you this yesterday? He only nominated one guy.
Oh, jeez. Who did he nominate?
No, I can't. I can't say. I can't say.
We'll talk afterwards.
Right? Okay. I can't. I'm not allowed to say. No. But I'm like going through like, right? They're fourth.
Yeah.
They're in the double bye. I figured they'd nominate 3 guys. Like most teams nominate 3 guys. You're like going.
So you have UCLA beating Wisconsin, John Tanjay, and then the game happening simultaneously. The game afterwards, you had Illinois taking on Maryland, and the star freshman Derek Queen and co.
Illinois is too funky for me.
They're hit or miss. They're hot or cold. They're the definition of hot or cold.
Right, but it's a home game. I think they'll win.
You think they will win? Illinois earlier this season going up against Maryland. They lost to Maryland by 21
at home. They
at
lost
home.
to
They
them.
lost. Yeah, they got brutalized. And then the last game, Purdue against Michigan, would be the next game coming up there in the row. Purdue, Michigan.
Golden's really good.
Golden is really good.
Okay. Danny Wolf did not play well at all against Penn State, but he has had great moments. The Penn State game, he just was not very good. Their problem is, Michigan's, their guards aren't playing well right now. Roddy Gale, Donaldson, Burnett, they're not playing well right now. And I think Michigan's going to lose the game. I think Purdue's going to beat them. And not only that, it's not going to be a close game. I think they're going to beat them by double digits. I know when they played at Purdue blew them out. They ran them out of the building.
By nearly 30. 27 was the final
And
difference.
Again, I see that's the problem with Michigan. They've got the 11 wins by 4 or less. That's great. That shows you about the. No, look at the other results. The other results are when they lose, they get hammered.
Yeah, and then when they won the second matchup in Michigan, they won by 2 in that one.
I mean, I think it's going to be a minimum of a 10-point win for Purdue.
For Purdue, so we then have Purdue going up against Maryland in the second game on Saturday. Purdue, Maryland. How do you feel about that one?
Purdue, Maryland. I think I had Purdue, Illinois, didn't I?
Did you have Illinois beating Maryland?
I did.
You did? My bad. So Purdue, Illinois.
Right.
And they, by the way, just played.
It might be Illinois.
Illinois won by 8 in their last matchup.
Yeah, it might be Illinois.
So Illinois making their way to the Big Ten championship game. Who will they face?
They'll play Michigan State.
Michigan State.
And then Michigan State will shut that group down. They'll look confused. Brad will be mad the entire game. It's like it's going to be everybody else's fault. It's going to be the player's fault, the manager's fault, Brian Barnhart's fault. It's going to be everybody else's fault. It's not going to be Brad's fault.
It's Brian Barnhart's fault, Steve. That's how it works.
Deion Thomas, it's his fault. Didn't say the right things.
Yeah.
It's everybody's fault. When Brad doesn't win, right, it's everybody else's fault.
Yes.
When Brad wins, it's all really like they did what I told them to do.
By the way, we didn't actually talk about the Big Ten awards and honors. You mentioned a little bit. Player of the Year, Braden Smith, as selected by coaches. Defensive Player of the Year, Ace Baldwin.
Ace, yeah.
Sixth Man of the Year went to Will Riley from Illinois.
Will Riley's a good player.
He's a good player.
That's another freshman right there. It's a good player.
Good freshman.
Yeah.
And Freshman of the Year went Derek Queen of Maryland.
Yeah, he's, you know what. That to me was one of the tougher ones because while you don't have a lot of impact freshmen in the league this year, you have Ace Bailey, you have Harper, okay? Jace Richardson's second half really came on.
Yeah, he's really torn up.
Mobley has shot the ball beautifully, and he runs the team, not Thornton. Okay, Thornton has run the team for 3 years now, but Mobley's the one that is now running that group. He's done a great job. Wesley Yates, I like. Will Riley, I like. Queen, though, to his credit, had a terrific year.
Moving down the order, Coach of the Year, Tom Izzo. And then first team, we had Derek Queen, Bryce Williams, Trey Kaufman-Wren, Braden Smith, John Tonje. Wrapping up the first team. Second team was Golden and Wolf from Michigan, Dawson Garcia, Nick Martinelli, and Bruce Thornton, second team. The third team was a group of, I believe, 7 players total because of how voting was split up and
media
worked.
coaches,
Yeah. Yakachonis, we had Gillespie from Maryland, Jaden Akins, and Jace Richardson from Michigan State, both Biddle and Shellstatter from Oregon, and Tyler Bilodeau from UCLA. The honorable mentions, Ballo, Sanford, Reese, Ace Baldwin, Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, and John Blackwell from Wisconsin, who we both liked. All freshman team was Yakachonis.
Yannick Niederhauser got honorable mention too.
Yeah, in terms of media voting. We haven't gotten to that part yet. In terms of the all freshman team that voted on by coaches, Yakachonis, Queen, Richardson, Bailey, Harper. All defensive team was Akins, Bamba, Biddle, Baldwin, and Kobe Johnson. And then sportsmanship award honorees, Penn State had Puff Johnson as their man. And then moving down, the media voting, Braden Smith, Derek Queen, Tom Izzo, same 3. Same first team. Second team, I believe, is the same, a little bit different. Golden was in the first team versus Queen in this one. Third team, same chunk. Honorable mentions, you did mention it, Yannick Hood and Niederhauser and Ace Baldwin both made their way into there.
Yeah.
So,
and Puff Johnson won the sportsmanship award for Penn State.
Yeah. And this is all going down right now. The Big Ten, the tournament starts up today in Gainbridge Fieldhouse in Indianapolis, and we will see how it goes, how the tournament runs. We'll talk about it as it happens, and yeah, it should be fun.
Thank you for listening to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a 7 Mountain Media production. Come back at 11 every weekday for analysis of the latest happening in the sports landscape. From college football to European soccer, Steve and Kyle cover it all on Sports Talk with Steve Jones.